Hey guys, happy Friday. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Marisa. If you're new here, if you're returning, welcome back. And yeah, happy New Year. Happy New Year. Y'all, it was crazy the other night, New Year's Eve. I was already asleep by midnight. I thought about going down to the city for the ball drop and I was like, no way am I doing that. I hate crowds so much. But right at midnight, like all of a sudden I wake up to like it sounded like bombs going off. And I was right by Prospect Park in that area, and like you could just hear them blowing off huge fireworks, and I was like, "Oh, Happy New Year!" But anyway, I hope you guys had a good New Year, and it's okay. So today I want to talk about becoming His bride, and the reason I want to talk about this is because the Lord has reminded me of this dream that I had years ago. I had this dream. No, it wasn't even a dream. It was a vision. It was one of my first visions, actually, years and years and years ago. Like, I want to say it was in 2016, 2017, maybe. And I had completely forgotten about this vision. But, like, for the past 2 to 3 weeks, the Lord keeps bringing it up, and I keep having flashes of it again. And in this vision, I had all of a sudden, it was like pitch black darkness, and I couldn't see anything. I could not see if I held my hand out in front of me, I couldn't even see my hand in front of me. And then all of a sudden I saw like a pinprick of light. And I didn't know where I was. I was like just engulfed in darkness basically. But then this pinprick, tiny little pinprick of light, I could see it in the distance. And I was like, I have to get to the light. And so I just started like blindly groping my way towards the light. And as I approached the light got bigger. And all of a sudden it got bright enough to where I could see kind of vaguely my surroundings, right? And I realized I was like in this dense, thick forest, like super thick forest. And but there was just enough light like where I could like kind of grope my way through this forest, right? And but I kept heading in the direction of the light and climbing over tree trunks and just climbing through. And then as the light got brighter, I found a path. And so I was like, oh, awesome, there's a path. And hey guys, if you want to drop something in the chat, go ahead. I'm trying to ignore it though. I meant to turn it off, but anyway. um so I get on the path, and you can easily walk on a path, right? The path is much easier than trying to like, because when I was in the forest part, I was like bumping into trees and vines and scraping my legs and all that stuff. Anyway, so I get on the path, and I keep heading in the direction of the light, and the light was getting brighter. And then I finally got to uh, the line of the forest. So it was like this dense forest line, and I had to break my way through this forest line, and it was really hard. And I mean, it took all my effort, and I finally just like burst through this forest line, and I get to this beautiful meadow, and it was like I tumbled out the other side. And so it was just the thickest right there at the border of the meadow and the forest. And so I burst through this forest line, and there's like this golden path like right in front of me, a long path. And I was like, oh, awesome, let me follow this path. And I followed it, and the source of the light was standing at the end of the path. And the closer I got to the light, the more I was radiant, the more bright I was. And I was dressed in a wedding gown. And my skin started glowing, translucent. And but I couldn't see into the light because it was so bright, right? It was like blinding light, but it didn't hurt your eyes. And so I just make my way down the path, and the closer I get to the light, I'm glowing light too. And so I finally step into where he is, um and then I looked just like him, and it was Jesus, and he was looking back at me. And I realized, oh, this is our wedding. And like, that was the end of the vision. And it was crazy because a couple weeks um after I had this vision, I was just kind of like at work, and I was just scribbling on a notepad, and I was trying to draw out what I saw, but I can't draw. I'm not an artist at all. And when I drew it out, it was like I drew the forest line, I drew the path and I drew the light, and it was a tree. It was like the tree of life. When I drew it out, it was like I was like, this is crazy. But I mean, I'm not saying I'm an artist. I'm just saying that's what happened when I drew it out. So, um, but that was the thing that got me started on the path of uh, studying what it meant to be the bride, and that was my first. Hold on, I'm moving my car. That was my first. That was the first vision God gave me, or inclination, or it was like He deposited something in me that day, and it was like I was just going to. Um, that's what got me started on like really seeking out what it meant to be the bride of Christ, right? Becoming His bride, and then I like it was like about a year later, maybe I started writing the book, The Bride Who Made Herself Ready, from the verse in Revelation, and it says, "Come now, rejoice, for the marriage supper of the Lamb has come, and the bride has made herself ready." And so becoming His bride, but I guess the reason why the Lord kind of I know my microphone is broken. I apologize. Like hold on. The the phone is broken. I'm using my old cell phone, and it you just have to turn your phone all the way up. I apologize. I'm speaking as loud as I can. But anyway, so what I was thinking was how I started on this path like years and years ago, obsessively thinking about what it meant to be a bride, what it meant to be the bride of Christ, and like every scripture in the Bible is always pointing to the bride, the bride, the bride. And for a while, I was like, am I supposed to get married? I mean, like, is God preparing me to be someone else's bride? You know, I didn't know, but I was just obsessed with it for the longest time. And I think you know, the enemy is going to attack us where God has appointed us, like in our you know, like in our calling. Like that's the thing that's going to get the most attacked. And I feel like ever since my breakthrough, like in November, ever since then, um all of a sudden I'm back focused on the one thing that I was focused on years ago. You know, it seemed like the enemy was attacking me in the one spot where that was my calling, that was my, you know, like my passion was this topic, and like all I could, it consumed me day and night all the time. And for years I kind of had to put it away because my heart was so closed off, you know, because I hadn't gone through that healing process. And when I went through the breakthrough like just about a month ago, all of a sudden I'm being re-immersed into the bride and what that means, and God's like enveloping me in it again. It's like pouring out on me again because I realized that was the thing that the enemy was trying to steal from me this whole time by having my heart closed off and stuff. Because every aspect of the bride, right? When you think about a bride and a groom in reality, in flesh and blood, bride and groom, not like Christ and His bride. I'm not talking about that, but it's the same thing. Everything about the way He created us to be man and wife, and man and you know, husband and wife, and family unit. Everything about it is a picture of His kingdom. And so of course, you know, that's the thing that the enemy tries to attack in our society. It's the thing that he tries to attack in culture, and that's the thing that's attacked in if we can destroy the family unit, we can destroy the very image of God, because His image is a man and a wife coming together, right? And like that's His very image. And so I was just thinking about that today, how one, Satan attacks us where we are called to minister, and like and he was just speaking to me about how he was like giving me back the things the enemy had stolen, and also just showing me how parallels of how, you know, becoming a bride, like we really have to be submissive to our husband, right, which is Jesus. And part of being submissive is just trusting Him, and you can't be submissive to someone you don't trust. You have to be able, and faith is trust. So we build our faith, right? Because you have to trust the person that you're submitting, and trust, you know, trusting with your very being, your very life, to make the decisions for you, because your husband leads you. Like in the natural, a husband is supposed to lead his wife, right? Now we have a bunch of effeminate men that don't know how to lead, but in true masculinity, a man makes the decisions. A man, you know, is the leader of the house, and a wife is supposed to submit to him. And the only way she can do that is if she trusts him. You cannot submit to a man you do not trust. And his job is to protect and care for her and care for her future. And so and so so I was just thinking about how God builds up our faith, our trust in Him. Because a few years ago, I had a dream where He just kept, I was in complete darkness again, and He was just telling me, faith is trust, faith is trust, faith is trust. And the more I trusted Him, the brighter my surroundings got, and then I could see where I was. And it's always, we're walking blindly through this world, and we just need to follow the light, follow the path, follow the thing that He has for us. That little small still whisper. It's like follow that, and as we follow it, our faith builds, our love builds, our hope builds in Him, and those things get brighter and brighter. And it's like then we can see with clarity our purpose and our destiny, and we become more and more like Him the more we follow on the path that He sets out for us. But you can only do that by faith, right? Because faith is trust, and you can't follow someone you don't trust. And so submitting to Him, submission is like, and that's surrender, that's constant surrender to what Jesus has for you, what He has for your life, what He wants your life to be. And it's like, not my will but yours be done. And it's this constant like following His voice, His leading, and trusting that He has the best possible outcome for you, and for your life, and for, that He knows better, that He sees the whole picture, that He knows where we're going. And I think a lot of women in today's culture don't know how to submit to men, because a lot of people don't know how to submit to Christ, even, because we haven't been taught this submission, or we've been taught that, like, misogyny is evil, and that, like, men leading is wrong, and somehow this is a bad thing, right? When actually it's the very thing that God created for us. But men aren't, you know men aren't leaders like they used to be, and so women have had to take over kind of by no choice whatsoever given to them, and so everything's kind of like, we're in the upside down now, where nothing makes sense, nothing, the way God created it, it's just more and more upside down. Like, even inside the churches, you'll see a lot of women that wear power suits and think they're the boss, and I think that women have a place in the church, and if you want to minister to women, then, like, you should be able to teach women and stuff like that. But I think men should be the leaders of the church. I'm old fashioned, I don't know, but women in the New Testament were prophets and seers and things like that, and they did have authority, but it wasn't the total authority, right, over men. And I think that I don't know, I just can see clearly now, like, that's where I've been attacked, like, the past few years, especially was in that special thing that whatever he deposited in me years ago with the vision of the bride, and that was my passion for so long. But, like, somehow I got deterred off of that, and he's bringing that back around, and I think that's, like, that was the breakthrough that I had, like, a few weeks ago, was me breaking through that I don't know. Anyway, it just keeps reminding me of it. But my passion is about, like, it's always been about, what does it mean to be the bride, right? What does it mean to be submissive? What does it mean to trust God with your whole life and in everything? Like, all of my life is by faith, right? Like, every day when I wake up, I don't know what I'm going to eat. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know who I'm going to meet. I don't know anything. And I have to be like, Lord, I trust you. And for me, back in the day, I was a huge control freak. I got to know all the answers. I need to know. No. I got to know everything. I got to plan everything. I got to know. And so it's a beautiful thing when he can take us from that control to having full release over whatever happens, Lord, whatever happens, and total surrender. But it's a long process of becoming the bride. And so he like, I remember that vision, and it was so old. It was like 27, it was almost 10 years ago I had that vision. And like, it's so similar to the vision I had of the house, where I had to claw my way through the brick wall. I told you that in the other video. But it's like this long process, right? And it's like a constant becoming, right? It's a journey. It's not about the destination. eventually we'll get to that destination, but it's all about the journey, the breakthrough. Even walking in the darkness was part of it, right? There was a time in my life where I walked in darkness, complete darkness, and just following the light until it becomes massive bright, like it engulfed me, and so I just want to say, like, if you ever feel like, because I know this especially this modern church can have a way of making us feel like if you're not fully broken free, if you're not fully delivered, if you're not fully healed, if you're not fully this, then you're the problem. When really God has taken us on a long journey. It's like Abraham. He he wasn't even given the promise of a son. God told him, leave everything, Abraham. He had to like build up his faith, and then God promised him a son, and then he had to wait 20 years for a son. It's a long process, and then he had to give his son back. Like, yeah. So it's this long journey, and I think sometimes we get, there's times in our journey where we feel like maybe we fell off the journey, we fell off the path, and we're lost or something. But that's not true. It's just we're not on the same timetable as God, and he doesn't mind taking his sweet time to equip us with stuff. I think Moses was in Egypt for 40 years. He was in the backside of the wilderness for 40 years, and then he actually did his calling for 40 years. So 40 years in Egypt as a lived as a prince, and then 40 years just hiding from whoever, and tending little sheep. He got a demotion. But he had to go through the process of leading sheep and taking care of them, and then 40 years doing his actual calling. So I think sometimes we rush what God's trying to do, or we feel like it's nothing's happening. And this past year, when nothing, literally, I felt like nothing was, I thought I was going backwards. He was doing his most intensive work on me this year, and it felt like nothing was happening. And so I just want to encourage somebody today, if you feel like nothing's happening, or you're not becoming what God promised, or it's taking a long time, I promise you he's working. I promise you he's working the most when it feels like the absolute, the absolute least. So, so, but we are not there yet, right? It's like, but that's the path that he has us on, is becoming the bride. And I encourage you to look up bride scriptures, and study what it means to be a husband and a wife, in that dynamic, and how, like, truly how, you know, Jesus is the husbandman, like he is the groom, he is the leader of the house. And being a bride truly does mean to um anyway, I'm sorry you can't hear me, dude. I have it all the way up. Like, I told you my phone's broken. Um anyway, becoming the bride of being truly submissive to what he wants to do in our lives. And so and being submissive, is part of that, is like the only way to do that is by trusting. And it's not just being submissive, because we can go along with God sometimes and have a bad attitude about it. We also need to be happy, joyful in our suffering, right? It's not enough that we go through the submission process and yielding to him, but be joyful in it. And it's like, I think Proverbs says, nothing worse than a contentious woman. A nagging wife is like a man would rather he'd rather be alone than have a nagging wife, right? And that's so true. And it's like, when we grumble and complain, God hates that. And when he took the children of Israel across the desert, like, literally all they did was grumble and complain, and the Lord was so mad he wanted to strike them dead. And I notice on the days where I get grumbly and complaining, it is so hard to hear his voice. It's so hard. I just feel his hot displeasure with me. But on the days where I'm just so, I can't control anything, and I'm just like, Lord, I yield to you, I submit to you, whatever you want to do, I'm just going to be happy, I'm not going to worry. Those days, everything works out beautifully. So it's not even just enough that we listen and obey him. It's like our attitude and how we do it. And so anyway, God's just taking me back to this thing that's always been in my heart about becoming a bride, and what does that actually mean, being the wife, right? Being in that role. And so anyway, I don't know, I just felt like somebody was lacking some patience in their trial today. That's what I felt like. And I just wanted to encourage you, if the longevity of it, because I think back to having that that vision that was 10 years ago, and I feel like I'm just now having that breakthrough that he showed me in the dream, in the vision, and so don't let these false doctrines teach you that everything is, you should, it's up to you to make these things happen. It's not. If you let God lead you, then you can just rest in knowing that, like, Lord, I've done everything you said. I've submitted myself to you. I seek your face. I read my Bible. I pray to you. I worship you. There's nothing else I can do, because that's my only job, is to worship you and to love you and to obey you, right? And so how can I possibly do any more than that, right? And this condemnation that comes from the prosperity gospel and those faith gospels, the word of faith gospel, is because they just say, well, if you just believed harder, you would have it. And it's so not true, because in the process you're becoming something. In the longevity, God is strengthening you for perseverance, for all these other things that you need for your destination that you're going to. And so don't get hung up on the length of the trial, and don't believe these false doctrines that tell you that you should already have things that God has promised you and that it's up to you, because literally he is the promise maker. That means he has to be the promise fulfiller. You can't, you he didn't, how do I say this? You didn't make him a promise. He made you one. And so how can you fulfill a promise you didn't make? Right? Like, if he showed you something that he was going to do, then you just yield to that, and however long it takes, but you didn't make yourself a promise. You didn't make him a promise. So how are you supposed to fulfill it? And that doesn't make sense, that if you just believe hard enough it'll happen. No, because all your only job in this whole process is surrendering and submission to your husband, and that's how you become the bride. It's a constant surrender and taking up your cross and following him and trusting him. And you can trust is faith. So you have to have submission, which is surrender, and you have to have trust, which is faith. And that's how you become his bride. And that's the process. That's part of the process of becoming. There's other parts, but those were the two I wanted to talk about today. And so anyway, yeah, I love you guys. I will try to get my phone fixed. I will talk to you soon. Have a great weekend. Yeah, have a great weekend. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.